So we're talking today because Rhode Island Foundation is releasing its latest round of grants, and this will also help African Alliance really help a lot of families. So just tell me a little bit about that and how specifically it will help Rhode Islanders in need that you serve.
I'd like to begin by expressing our gratitude to United Way and the Rhode Island Foundation. I also like to express a thank you to our partners. There are 5 different groups, and Chris is one of them. Everybody has done quite a lot of wonderful work. Back to your question, and Chris will chime in on this. I think the African community in Rhode Island, by the way, there are 40 different African countries resident in the state of Rhode Island. From Egypt to South Africa. And we have needs. We have quite a lot of need. So what the grant has done for us is give the community a voice that we normally keep to ourselves. We don't like handout. We don't talk about our needs as such. We do the best to obey the law, raise our family, go to work, and just be a good citizen. But COVID-19 raised a different tempo in us. It's new, very new to us. Whether we're talking about rent, we're talking about utility, we're talking about food, there's still a lot of people in our community who are not stepping forward to say, I need help. Very many. It has nothing to do with language. It just has to do with the pride and culture we grew up in. I don't know if I answered your simple question, and Chris can chime in anytime. We'll let you ask questions.
Yeah, that's a good point that you made. I think that it is difficult for people to ask for help, especially at a time when everyone needs a little bit of help during this pandemic, whether it's rent or utilities or just helping to get groceries or something. So how have you identified the people that do need this help? I think Rhode Island Foundation told me there are 100 families, which is potentially 400 people overall that will get help from this.
Let Chris pick up on that question.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Kalawale, and again, thank you for having us today, Alexandra. As far as identifying the help, individuals that would need help, like we said earlier on, our community is part of a larger community in Rhode Island. And in Rhode Island, you have diverse communities, and each community have their own idiosyncrasies and uniqueness. And our community is unique in the sense that we have our peculiar culture, we have our peculiar language, we have our peculiar diet. And like you know, and I know, community members and partners trust their leaders more than they trust politicians or institutions that are run by government. And so because of the trust that we have built over time, personally, I'm a pastor of a church, and Mr. Kalawale and the rest of us are community leaders. And so we have built this partnership and trust with our community members over time. And therefore, it's easier for them to access us for whatever need that they may have. And prior to COVID-19, churches and mosques have always bridged that gap to support our community, provide them the resource that they need. But with COVID-19, institutions like churches and mosques and the rest of them just could not continue to provide our fund. And that's why we needed funds from organizations like United Ways or Rhode Island Foundation, so we can continue to provide help to our community members. And identifying those who have need is really a one-on-one contact, and having to fall back on lists that we already had of those who needed help in the past, and also just putting the message out there within the community for those who might need help. And so far, we have been able to connect with them. And one thing we've found is that when you have that direct connection with individuals, you, especially in our unique cultural community, you're more likely to elicit that need, because ordinarily, an average African person is not going to tell you what need they have because of just our culture. And if there's one thing we always keep is the pride of being a human being and keeping that uniqueness. And so by the fact that we have established this trust with our community, we're able to reach them directly, and we're able to access their needs and provide them the funds that they need to continue to keep their heads above water. And that's why it is absolutely important that organizations like the United Way and Rhode Island Foundation continue to invest in grassroots communities like us to reach them, because we're already doing the work. We have the infrastructure, the relationship have been built over a period of time, and the trust is there. So by giving us this grant, we're able to reach members of our community who otherwise would not be out there accessing government funded program. And some of them just don't feel comfortable doing that. Again, we are immigrant community. And so what we have right now has been of huge help to us. And we're able to easily identify people who need help, and we're giving them that help. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned though that, of course, as you would know, churches have been closed, places of worship has been closed for a while. Has that made it more difficult to connect with those people that may need help, that have been reaching out to you as their source of trying to ask for help? And when did is your church currently open right now?
What is difficult is the resource to provide that help. Connecting with people has not been a problem because we're using social media, we're visiting people physically. And again, not everybody in the community have access to technology, being able to call and access the internet. And we're able to visit with them as needed. And so the contact that we have built over time has not diminished. What has diminished is the resources. And so when churches are closed, there's just no way that we continue to raise funds. And so United Way and Rhode Island Foundation came right at the nick of time to provide us this access of funds to be able to continue to do what we always have done. And so it's not really the contact that's the problem. We're still in contact with our community members, but we just have not been able to provide the resources for obvious reasons. We don't have them. And so now we're able to do that because of the help that we have received.
If I can just add one or two words to that. We know where we live. Mm-hmm. And that makes life a lot easier. There are other agencies that make food available. It's not what we eat, because of who we are, it's just different. Number two, what church used to do before the COVID-19 is provide that environment where we say hello to one another, because the church by itself is a family, where we share thoughts, talk about what the week has been or what the next week will look like. We are a community that live on 3 inches apart. Sometimes we hug, sometimes we shake hands. And that's the culture, because that is what builds the trust and resiliency for us. All of a sudden, we are now talking about 6 feet apart. Part of just as an example of the family we've been assisting, a family of 7 or a family of 9 in a 2-bedroom apartment. The breadwinner can't go to work. It just makes life very, very complicated. And this is where the community leaders come into the picture, the churches, the mosques come into the picture, and the fund has been of tremendous help. We're already thinking ahead, but I'll let you ask the next question before I say the next thing I was going to say.
No, you hit on one of the things that I was going to ask was that, we've been hearing that communities that are densely populated or live in like dense living situations, that it's been really hard. The virus has been really hard on these people. And, you know, there might be higher rates of infection or whatever it is in places like Pawtucket, Central Falls, Providence, Woonsocket. So yeah, you hit on what I wanted to ask as well. So whatever you wanted to say next on that.
Yeah, I was just going to touch
Should I
base.
just add something before you move to the next?
Sure, go ahead.
So one of the things I wanted to just add to it is that our African community members have been seriously impacted by the COVID-19 situation. And that is because we do a lot of the nursing home work. We do a lot of the group homework. We are the transporters, and we work at the groceries. And so the unique nature of the type of work that members of our community do exposes them to the COVID-19. And so we've had so much of infection rate within the African, indigenous African immigrant community. And the effect of that is that we're losing businesses. Some individuals are not comfortable going back to work or they don't have work at all. And the transporters, they're not doing their transportation. And so there's no food at home. And so we're dealing with serious food insecurity. And rental situation is another thing entirely. And so the need is more than what we can describe. And except you're part of this effort, you would not really understand the need that's on the ground. And I can just tell you two examples of encounter that I recently had. There was one of the ladies in the African community who had 2 children, single mother, and she had been seriously impacted by the COVID-19 situation. And I was able to, through this fund, bring some help to that family. And the day I went over there, she was really literally crying. I mean, a grown-up woman. This work is very rewarding, but it's also very revealing. It's rewarding and revealing. She was crying for joy that she was able to get help at the nick of time because she's been really suffering through the time. And that really brought a smile to the faces of this family. And then there was another case that she just texted me today. She's so happy now. But prior to getting the help, she told me, I've never seen this woman. I don't know her personally, but she's African. And she told me that she had gone into depression, and very deep depression, and she became suicidal because hope was just gone. There was nothing coming. And the help has brought a smile into her face, and we're able to help her with rental assistance and send her some coupons for food. And she just texted me today, very grateful. And those are just 2 instances of many. And the only reason we're able to identify these cases is because of the trust that they have for us and the trust we build over time with the community. Because nobody just tells you their deep secrets of what they're going through in their life if they really don't trust you. And just having to chat on the phone has made this person better. So our work is more than just do supply of food and medicine and rent, but also giving that psychological therapy that we do on a day-to-day basis in the church, and just talking to people and helping them to understand that there is hope and things are going to be all right. It's unquantifiable part of what we do. But upon that, we appreciate what Rhode Island Foundation and United Way has done, that individuals like that lady that I just described, who was almost at the point of committing suicide because hope was gone, but this has brought life back to her. It's really amazing. And those are the things that are revealing and sometimes really bring you to tears and breaks your heart, that there may be one other person right now that we have not identified that is at the point of deep depression and going into suicidal ideation, and we don't know. And those are individuals that we're looking for. And the sooner we find them, the better it is, because we don't want one other member of our community to die again, because we've lost people to COVID-19 already, and we just don't want it to happen. And post-COVID-19 environment is going to be different. The needs are there. They're not going away. And this is going to be with us for a while. And so the more resource we have to be able to reach individuals on the grassroots, the better it is. Thank you. I know I'm talking a lot, but.
No, thank you so much for sharing those stories. I appreciate that. You talked about how, the need is going to be ongoing for quite some time. Julius, this might be a question for you, but I think the donation that you guys are getting is 40,000. Is that?
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How long do you foresee that before it runs out? Because Rhode Island Foundation, they tell me we've raised 8.5 million so far. We've already handed out $8 million, and it's been 3 months. So it runs out quickly. So I mean, how long do you foresee at least this $40,000 helping African Alliance?
Today, as we speak to you, we have reached out to 142 families today. As the weeks go by, we see this is going to escalate. We expect people, again, we emphasize members of our community you won't know what's going on with them unless you are close to them. Mm-hmm. We begin to see that number growing at a fast rate. It is my humble opinion by the end of July, we're going to run out of all this money. Okay? But this presents another challenge, and Chris talked a little bit about it. If you're a breadwinner and you have children and you lost your job, you are worried about health. You don't know what you got because you work in the health industry or any other. There's that time we need to look at recovery phase. People get into depression. How do we support them so they can get back on their legs and become productive community person? That is another need by itself. Right now, we are providing these basic needs just to make them whole, just to think differently, to be happy, to have hope. But going back to work, to be productive is another phase. If you need to pay for babysitting, if you need to pay for daycare, all of those things, you need to teach your kids school subjects and so on and so forth. There are just a lot to attend to, So my thinking is we're gonna come back and request for more, but it seems like the money is running out fast.
Wow, that's insightful. Money goes fast. Anything else that you guys wanted to add? I think we hit on a lot of important things, but if there's anything else that we missed that you want to make sure our viewers know, or that your community knows, I'd ask you to do that now.
I will just add, we're able to cut across the state, not just Providence, Woonsocket, and so on and so forth. We're able to cut across the state, which is great. We've also been able to bring many people out of almost a depression state to feeling differently. We've also made sure that many of the African stores participate. So we give them coupons and things like that so they can shop in an African store. What does that mean is we're also trying to support those stores because of COVID-19. Customers, there's decrease in the number of customers that use or shop in those locations. Okay? So again, as much as we see the problem, we are trying to stretch it a little bit. And most importantly for me is not to be lonely. This is key, really, really key. The pastors, the rest of us, we get on the phone, see how you're doing, how are you, and so on and so forth. Money, don't buy that. Really, don't buy that. Chris, you may want to add to it.
Yeah, I think that part of this work that we're doing is that post-COVID-19, with the stress that we have gone through as African community members, like we were told earlier, like Mr. Kalawole just said, we're not used to this physical distancing thing, but we had to do it because it was necessary. And so with that comes with its psychological impact. And that is going to have to be reserved. And that's where people like us will have to do more in post-COVID, the recovery phase. And there are individuals in our community who own very small businesses. Maybe a taxi driver that owns just one vehicle that's his user. COVID-19 comes, cannot go out anymore to fend for the family. And so that's a psychological impact on that head of household who is not able to provide for his family over 3 months. So those are things that we need to begin to unwind and bring hope to our community again. And again, those type of services are not quantifiable because we don't get paid for that. However, bringing just help to individuals who need prescription to be filled. And you know, and I know that Africans, we are predisposed to certain comorbidities like high blood pressure, like diabetes. And you cannot go without medication if you have high blood pressure or have diabetes. You have to fill your medication. And so where somebody is not working, cannot pay, do copay, and that's where we come in to help those individuals to fill their prescription to continue to have medicine and take care of themselves. And so apart from that, we're gonna have a group of individuals who own their own homes and their mortgages were deferred, but their feeding was not deferred. They still need to feed their family. And so 3 months is gonna pass. Some of them are at that point right now where the mortgage company is gonna come back to ask for the 3 months rent. So somebody who couldn't pay the first month, second month, how can he pay 3 months if he had no job? And that's gonna be a lot of stress on our family, head of household. And again, we need to step in and help those individuals. They're not gonna go to Department of Human Services to ask for help. We're not used to asking for handout. But as community leaders, we know where our members live. They trust us. We build this trust for a long time. And we're able to go to them, inquire about what is going on. They can confide in us. And if we have more fund, which we're gonna need, like we just heard, by the end of July, this is gonna go away. And what's gonna happen in August? What's gonna happen in September? And what's gonna happen if there's resurgence of this virus again in the fall? And so we're preparing not just for today, but for the future to ensure that our community is well taken care of. And one of the things that I would ask of you is to help put that message out, that anybody who is of African descent, who live in Rhode Island, does not need to suffer by themselves. We're here to assist them. We need them to reach out to us. And for those that we have not been able to identify, like I said, one thing that I will not be happy with is to see that another African member is going into deep depression when we should have been able to help that individual just because we could not identify that person. So we're trying our best to put the message out. But the work is enormous. There's a lot to do, and we're doing our best to fill that. The more help we can get, the more we can do, because we have the infrastructure already on the ground to distribute this. We want to be able to provide culturally appropriate food so that we have food security in our community. We want to be able to help them out with housing so we can keep that roof over their head. School is going to come by. Children need to go to school. They're going to need money to purchase certain school material for their kids. We want to be able to prepare every member of our community for that. Prescription is another thing. We want to make sure that we have prescription in our community filled so that in case COVID-19 comes back again, we'll be able to withstand it. And those are some of the things and many more that we want to do in the next few months. And we need whatever resource we can get to make that happen. And so we appreciate what we have, but we're gonna need more. Thank you.
Thank you guys both so much